Jai Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Prasharanini Visesa Sunyavadi Pachitya Disitarani Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Sri Guru Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Mukam Kapitu Vasalam Kamula Vyachitni Yakripata Pambani Svikuru Chakapatari Chapi Pasandi Rasvacha Chitanam Pavandu Vaishnav. So we welcome everyone to today's class. Hare Krishna. First of all, we want to say that please, devotees should be consistent. Yesterday, Dr. Elvis, you are not in class. Raghupati Prabhu, you are not there. Prana Priya Mataji, you are not there. And today, all those who were there yesterday, they have not come yet. Meanwhile, we expected to start promptly and also end promptly. Especially, we expected to end very, very promptly. So it is natural that if we start late, we might go beyond the time. So to avoid that, we should all be coming on time so that we can start promptly and also conclude properly. Then secondly, whatever was discussed yesterday, any class that you absent yourself, you are expected to go on the YouTube link so that you can go and listen to the class and make notes and submit, which I know is more tedious than attending the class. So it's like you prefer that. And that is why you decide to be avoiding classes. And in the end, when we are trying to compile results, all this will reflect because your attendance is recorded, and we are going to look at it and calculate the percentage of attendance. Your attendance is less than 70%, it will have a problem. You may have to submit notes of all your absenteeisms. The days you absented yourself, you have to submit notes. So to avoid that, anxiety later, it is better for us to be focused and attend the classes once and for all and be free. Anyway, that is about that. This chapter began with Arjuna's inquiry, because towards the end of chapter 4, Arjuna became a little bit confused that Krishna was talking about renunciation of work, and at the same time was talking about work in devotion. So renunciation of work, karma sannyas, to give up work and go practice yoga and meditation and all that, cultivate jnana. And Arjuna come to like that because there he doesn't need to involve in physical violence and involve himself in killing relatives. But Krishna did not agree with him that no, even though that is good, better than that is to work in devotion. do your duty and offer the results to me. So in the end, Arjuna wanted to know decisively what Krishna exactly wanted him to do. That of the two, renouncing work and work in devotion, which one is better? That was the question Arjuna asked. Do they lead to the same destination? So Krishna answered that yes, both are good. Renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good, because eventually renunciation of work can also lead you to the ultimate goal. But that will take a very long time, and the process is very cumbersome, and it takes many, many lives. And it takes a long time, lifetimes upon lifetimes. But this work in devotion is very straight and direct. You just engage all your senses in the service of the master of the senses, and you are there. You just replace lower engagements with higher engagements, and you are there. All the things you are doing, you will still do. You will eat. Where the Ghani does not eat, fasting and meditating and breathing only once in every 3 days, you are going to be eating, breathing, singing, dancing, using vehicles, using microphones, using telephones, uh, using laptops, and at the same time, you are making progress in spiritual life. So it's a thing of replacing lower engagement with higher engagement. And it is far easier. You see, so Krishna explained that both are good, but work in devotion is better. Then he started explaining the characteristics of those who have taken to this process of work in devotion. And we have gotten to the point here. The first theme is exhausted in verse 6. And today in verse 7 to 12, the second theme is explained. And this second theme is about how to practice Niskama Kama Yoga. How to practice Niskama Kama Yoga. Niskama Kama Yoga means working without attachment to the results, working for the pleasure of God, working as a matter of showing example, positive example of the individual soul taking responsibility according to his guna. So this is the second session, and we're going to start with this now, verse 7. Because all those who didn't attend class, once again, you can go and listen to the lectures and make your notes. We cannot be going back and forth because of those who don't attend classes. So we'll just continue from where we stop. So verse 7. Yoga yukto visuddhatma vijitatma jitendriya sarva bhutatma bhutatma kurma apina lipyate. One who walks in devotion So please, sorry for that. You guys called me, so I have to tell him to wait. So the translation again: one who walks in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always walking, such a man is never entangled. So somebody should read the purport. Okay, since we are all reluctant to read, let me start to explain something. Here, it is mentioned by Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur first that all jivas are affectionate to the householders who are properly engaged in Niskama Kama Yoga and who do not take to Kama Sannyasis. So the comparison was made in the purport of verse 6. The comparison between a Niskama Kama Yogi, who is technically a Bhakta, because you are working for the pleasure of God. You are performing your duty without attachment to the result, all for the pleasure of God. So you are like a Bhakta, a devotee. Then there is these other yogis, like the Gyanis and the Mayavadi sannyasis. So there was a comparison in the purport, very clear and beautiful one, that whereas the Niskama Kama Yogi, it can happily engage in activities, the other yogi does not engage in activities. Instead, he goes to the forest to sit down and meditate. So his level is different. There is no sweetness, there is no happiness, there is no active engagement, there is no singing, there is no dancing, there is no taking of prashadam. There are no, activities. Practically sitting down, trying to control the sense. It is very, very tedious. It is very, very tedious. And it is said that just by engaging the senses in Krishna consciousness, in the devotional activities, one is already situated and protected by Bhakti itself. That those sannyasis who are more interested in wearing the dress of a sannyasi, but who have not gotten internal purification, they will always fall down. Krishna's focus is that Arjuna should not prematurely renounce work, but he should continue to do his duty, like, continue to do his regulated devotional activity on daily basis. Should do those activities and leave the rest for Krishna. We should not aspire to become great all of a sudden. We should just try to be good devotees, good followers of. And if Krishna sees that we are becoming steadily situated, himself will make us great. That we should not rush into wearing the dress of a renunciant, whereas internally our senses are always meditating on the object of the senses. Our mind is always meditating on the object of the senses. Therefore, what is more important is internal purification first. And the internal purification will come when you continue to do your regulated devotional activities under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. So that was glorified. Niskama Kama Yoga was glorified. And that if somebody, this verse is saying that if somebody does engage, even if he remains a householder, even is wearing the dress of a householder, is living in his house, but is internally purified by working, doing his duty, prescribed duty, is far better than one who wears the garb of a sannyas, but is internally impure, meditating on the object of the senses, while trying to be seen as a very great sannyas. So this is the glorification given to. So such a person, say, even though he's engaged in all kinds of activities, is never entangled. That everybody love a niskama kama yogi. One who is working, doing his duties without attachment, working for the pleasure of everyone and trying to serve God with all his heart. Everybody is happy with such a person. And that such a person is considered a yoga yukta. In other words, a yoga yukta is somebody who realizes that everything belongs to Krishna and who is learning and acting, engaging, is learning how to engage everything in the service of Krishna, following the Savasya principle. So such a person is called a yoga yukta. And what are the symptoms of this yoga yukta? There are three basic symptoms of a yoga yukta. First, a yoga yukta, according to this verse, yoga yukta visuddhatma. A yoga yukta is visuddhatma. A yoga yukta is vijitatma. And a yoga yukta is jitendriya. Three qualifications of a yoga yukta. A yoga yukta is visuddhatma. A yoga yukta is vijitatma. And a yoga yukta is jitendriya. One who is walking in devotion in niskama kama yoga or bhakti yoga. Such a person is a visuddhatma, is a pure soul. A pure soul means he has understood that everything belongs to Krishna, that he himself is part and parcel of Krishna, and therefore existence means engaging everything in the service of Krishna and is acting on that platform. Such a soul is called a pure soul. In other words, what makes us impure is our desires for sense gratification. So one whose desire is only to please the Lord is a pure soul. So such a pure soul first is visuddhatma. That means his intelligence is purified. Yoga yukta visuddhatma. One who is a pure soul first, his intelligence is purified. Then, after purification of intelligence, is vijitatma. His mind is also purified. And not only that, his jitendriya, his senses are also purified. So a yoga yukta is visuddhatma, vijitatma, and jitendriya. Like to become a yoga yukta? Such a person is a friend to all living entities, and everybody likes him. And even though such a person is working, he's never entangled by the reaction of work. How beautiful. So how do we work as a Bhagavad Apita Niskama Kama Yogi? We should try to understand Krishna, the proprietor of everything, and act in obedience to the last verse of this particular chapter. Bhuktaram Jagyata Pasam Sarva Luka Maheswara. Surida Sarva Bhutana Mam Chantim Sati. We should act in obedience to that principle. And if we are acting like that, everybody love us and we become friend of all living entities. And in the end, even though we are working, our work will not entangle us. There will be no karma bandhana. So this is how beautiful this verse is. So when I'm telling you to read, and you are not spontaneous in reading, Haribo, I will read it myself to purify my consciousness. One who walks in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always walking, such a man is never entangled. Purport. One who is on the path of liberation by Krishna consciousness is very dear to every living being, and every living being is dear to him. This is due to his Krishna consciousness. Such a person cannot think of any living being as separate from Krishna, just as the leaves and branches of a tree are not separate from the tree. He knows very well that by pouring water to the root of a tree, the water will be distributed to all the leaves and branches. Or by supplying food to the stomach, the energy is automatically distributed throughout the body. Because one who works in Krishna consciousness is servant to all, is very dear to everyone. And because everyone is satisfied by his work, he is pure in consciousness. Because he is pure in consciousness, his mind is completely controlled. And because his mind is controlled, his senses are also controlled. Because his mind is always fixed on Krishna, there is no chance of it being deviated from Krishna. Nor is there a chance that he will engage his senses in matters other than the service of the Lord. He does not like to hear anything except topics relating to Krishna. He does not like to eat anything which is not offered to Krishna. And he does not wish to go anywhere if Krishna is not involved. Therefore, his senses are controlled. A man of controlled senses cannot be offensive to anyone. One may ask, why then was Arjuna offensive in battle to others? Wasn't he in Krishna consciousness? Arjuna was only superficially offensive because, as already been explained in the second chapter, all the assembled persons on the battlefield will continue to live individually, as the soul cannot be slain. So spiritually, no one was killed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Only their dresses were changed by the order of Krishna, who was personally present. Therefore, Arjuna, while fighting on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, was not really fighting at all. He was simply carrying out the order of Krishna in full Krishna consciousness. Such a person is never entangled in the reactions of work. Hare Krishna. Are there some questions on these points? A Yuga Yukta is Vijitatma. A Yoga Yukta is Visuddhatma. A Yoga Yukta is Jitendriya. We are all expected to become Yoga Yuktas. Yes. Acting on the platform of a Yoga Yukta, we become dear to every living entity, and every living entity will be dear to us because we see every living entity in connection to Krishna. And to such a person, even though you are working, you are not entangled by reactions to sinful activities. A Niskama Kama Yogi is a Yoga Yukta. And a Yoga Yukta is never entangled, even though working. Okay. The next verses are two verses together, verses 8 and 9. Naiva Kenshit Karo Miti Yukto Man Yetata Twavit Pasyan Srivan Sprisan Jigran Asnan Gasham Swapan Swasan Pralapan Visrijan Grinam Nisam Api Indriya Tesu Vatanta Itidaraya. Translation. A person in the divine consciousness Although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows nothing himself. Always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them. And somebody read the purpose. Somebody. Okay. Why people are reluctant to read, I continue my explanation. Wow. So such a person is Naiva Kinshit Karomiti. Naiva Kinshit Karomiti. He never thinks that he is the doer. A devotee never thinks himself to be the doer of activities. Prakriti Kriyamanani, Gunai Karmani Sarvasaha, Ahankara Vimudatma, Kataham Itimayati. It is only the bewildered spirit souls that think himself to be doers of activities, which are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. So, such a yoga yukta does not see himself to be doers of activities. It sees that material nature is acting and everything is acting as instruments of the Lord. That he himself is aloof from them. So he knows that he's a soul, is a tattvavid, is a self-realized person. One who acts in Krishna consciousness is a self-realized person. And we always give the analogy of the coconut shell. The coconut, dry coconut, very dry coconut becomes detached from the shell inside, such as it to be shaken. If you shake it, it can be shaken. It is detached from the shell. So also is a pure devotee. A pure devotee is actually detached from the body, even though he lives in the body. He knows that it's not the body, it's a spirit soul living inside the body. He engages the body only for specific purposes. He's not influenced by the bodily demands, but he engages the body for specific purposes in Krishna consciousness. So such a person is like the periscope, simple periscope in physics. This verse is actually technically called the periscope verse. Periscope verse. Periscope, a simple periscope is like this. In physics, the sailors, for instance, they use a periscope, simple periscope. They are inside the ship, and where the sailor is sitting, there is a mirror facing him at right angle. Okay, facing him at 45 degrees centigrade. Then there is a link between that mirror facing him to the top of the ship. On the top of the ship, there is another mirror facing the front. So whatever is in the front is reflected on the mirror. Then that mirror is also reflects whatever is there into the mirror facing the sailor who is sitting inside the ship, who is the one sailing, driving the ship. So looking through the mirror facing him, he's seeing everything that is outside in front. So the soul is completely detached. The sailor is not up, is not engaging in it, he's just sitting inside there and he's seeing everything. You see, the soul, the pure devotee, the self-realized soul is sitting inside the body and is seeing everything, and the eyes are like his periscope, the mirror at angle 45. And he's seeing through the eyes, hearing through the ears, smelling through the nose, but is completely aloof from the senses themselves. He engages the senses, but it's not the senses. He doesn't identify himself with the senses. This is a pure devotee who is like a dry coconut that is detached from the soil. So this is it. It does not do anything. He said, a person in divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving or opening, receiving or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them. So this is how eventually a yoga yukta becomes. His realization situates him very, very transcendental to the body, and is simply observing the actions and reactions of the body and the senses. So it's not affected by sinful reaction. And it does not engage in activities that will bring sinful reactions to him. So this is it. Never kinshit karomiti. He never thinks himself to be the doer of activities. And it's also called a tattvavit because he realizes himself as separate from the body and is acting on that platform. See? Such a person does not do anything, even though he appears to be doing something. So this is it. And beyond that, it's like a lotus flower. A lotus flower is actually born from the mud. The stem is connected to the mud. And even though it's born from the mud, it's on top of the water as it matures. And as it's on top of the water, it's not touched by the water. And even if you pour water on it, the water will just slip away. It does not stay there. It's like a wasp, and the water does not, it does fall on it and find its level. So always the lotus flower is in the water, but is aloof from the water. So this is a tattvavit. A tattvavit is self-realized, is a Visuddhatma, and is a yoga yukta, and therefore is Visuddhatma, Vijitatma, and Jitendriya. We are expected to become tattvavit, self-realized, to the extent that we no longer engage in any material activity or activity that will bring some reaction. So I read the purport again for my purification, since nobody is ready to read. A person in Krishna consciousness is pure in his existence, and consequently he has nothing to do with any work which depends upon 5 immediate and remote causes: the doer, the work, the situation, the endeavor, and fortune. This is because he is engaged in the loving transcendental service of Krishna. Although he appears to be acting with his body and senses, he is always conscious of his actual position, which is spiritual engagement. In material consciousness, the senses are engaged in sense gratification, but in Krishna consciousness, the senses are engaged in the satisfaction of Krishna senses. Therefore, the Krishna conscious person is always free, even though he appears to be engaged in affairs of the senses. Activities such as seeing and hearing are actions of the senses meant for receiving knowledge, whereas moving, speaking, evacuating, etc. are actions of the senses meant for work. A Krishna conscious person is never affected by the actions of the senses. He cannot perform any act except in the service of the Lord, because he knows that he is the eternal servitor of the Lord. So is it clear? A Krishna conscious person is completely aloof from sense engagement. His senses are engaged, actually. This is the difference between this type of bhakta, a Niskama Kama yogi, and other type of yogis. Whereas other type of yogis are advocating non-engagement of the senses, and they are sitting, meditating in one place, trying to control the senses. A devotee is actually consciously engaging all his senses in the service of the master of the senses. So he's acting, that all his actions are in Krishna consciousness. So as a person, even though acting is not affected by sinful reactions. And that is where we're expected to arrive. So that while eating, sleeping, evacuating, we know that only the senses are engaged. Okay? All other type of yogis do not engage their senses. They demonize the senses. They demonize the senses. They demonize the body. The body is the cause of all problems. So their practice is how to negate, forcefully deprive the body of all the bodily needs. Therefore, they sit in one place, not giving the body any attention. Then they are engaging in closing their eyes and meditating until the physical body will dry up. And that is not for a Krishna conscious devotee. A Krishna conscious devotee knows that everything belongs to Krishna, and he masters the art and science of Yukta Vairagya. He mastered the science of engaging everything in the service of and for the pleasure of Krishna, and is transcendentally absorbed in that way. This is a Bhakti Yogi. A Bhakti Yogi engages the senses. He is prashadam. It's only Bhakti Yogis that is prashadam. He offers the food to the Lord, and he eats the remnants, and that becomes a purifier. It is only the Bhakti Yogis that dance, they sing. Others are afraid of singing, but the Bhakti Yogi sings the glories of the Lord. He follows the footsteps of Ambarish Maharaj, engaging all the senses in the service of the Lord. That is a Bhakti Yogi. He dances for the Lord, whereas other yogis are afraid of dancing. They consider you, if you are in their clique, they consider you falling. Why are you dancing sentimentally? That is how they see you. But a Bhakti yogi, he dances for the pleasure of the Lord. All his abilities are channeled for pleasing the Lord. So only him, the Bhakti yogi, is qualified to do activities, because his activities do not attract sinful reactions. How beautiful. Krishna consciousness and its packaging are incomparably very, very beautiful and attractive. Little wonder then, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is spreading all over the world very, very widely. Little wonder there. It is not therefore not surprising, because of the packaging. It's never surprising why Krishna Consciousness movement is spreading all over the world. So that is it. We are not telling people not to work. We are not propagating abandonment of duties. We are propagating work in Krishna consciousness. And that is the beauty of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. Verse 10. Brahmani Adaya Karmani Sangam Tyatva Karotiya Lipyatena Sapapena Padma Patram Ivambasi. Ibn Basa, one who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful action, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. Can somebody read the purpose?
Yeah, Brahmani means in Krishna consciousness. The material world is a sum total manifestation of the three modes of material nature, technically called the pradhana. The Vedic hymns Sarvam Pi Etad Brahma, Mandukya Upanishad 2, Tasmad Eta Brahma Nama Rupam Anam Cha Jayate, Mundaka Upanishad 1 to 10. And in the Bhagavad Gita 14:3, Mama Yoni Mahad Brahma indicates that everything in the material world is a manifestation of Brahman, and everything in the material, and although the effects are differently manifested, they are non-different from the cause. In the Upanishad, it is said that everything is related to the Supreme Brahman or Krishna, and thus everything belongs to him only. One who knows perfectly well that everything belongs to Krishna, that he is the proprietor of everything, and that therefore everything is engaged in the service of the Lord, naturally has nothing to do with the result of his activities, whether virtuous or sinful. Even one's material body is gifted of the Lord, is being a gift of the Lord for carrying out a particular type of action, can be engaged in Krishna consciousness. It is then beyond contamination by sinful reactions, exactly as the lotus leaf, though remains in the water, is not wet. The Lord also says in the Gita 3:30, Mayi Sarvani Karmani Sanyasa, resign all works unto me, Krishna. The conclusion is that a person without Krishna consciousness acts according to the concept of material body and senses. But a person in Krishna consciousness acts according to the knowledge that the body is the property of Krishna and should therefore be engaged in the service of Krishna.
Okay, so that is it. Very, very clear to everyone. Here we use our senses. Only the Bhakti yogis use their senses. All other yogis do not use their senses. The Bhakti yogi utilizes his senses in the service of the Lord. He knows how to use his knowledge gathering senses in the service of the Lord. He knows how to use his working senses in the service of the Lord. This is the principle of Yukta Vairagya. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhi Yukta Vairagya Uchati. Engaging everything. Irisikena Irisikesa Sivanam Bhakti Uchati. He engages all the senses in the service of the master of the senses. In devotional activities. There are no devotional activities, active devotional activities in other type of yogas. All about trying to mechanically control the mind and the senses. But here, the controlling process is active engagement. Therefore, param drisva nivartante, replacing lower engagements with higher engagements. This is Krishna consciousness. And one who is actively engaged in Krishna consciousness, therefore, is never entangled by sinful reactions. Yes. And we are saying it again and again. How the Bhakti Yogi engages his senses. He uses his hand to clap for the Lord. In fact, there are some texts in the Bhagavad Gita where the purport, the Ambarish Maharaj verse is explained. Savai Mana Krishna Padaravindayo. Savai Mana Krishna Padaravindayo. Vashams Vaikunta Gunanu Banan. It engages all his senses. His hands in clapping, his legs in moving to the temple, his nose in smelling the flowers offered to the Lord, his eyes in seeing the deities, his body in touching the bodies of the devotees. He engages all the senses in the service of the Lord. Only in Krishna consciousness or Bhakti Yoga are the senses utilized. To the extent that I use the mouth to talk about Krishna and take prasada. You see, so it's a very beautiful type of yoga. And this packaging, anyone who's not attracted by this packaging cannot be attracted by anything at all. So Krishna consciousness, that is the beauty of the Krishna consciousness movement. And one who is fortunate enough to be part of it should constantly glorify the Lord, treasure it, preserve it, and make sure that it guides it like gold or diamond so that it does not lose it at any time. So this is very beautiful. Following in the footsteps of Ambarish Maharaj, we should engage the senses in the service of the master of the senses. This is the recommendation. We should engage the senses in the service of the master of the senses. I will look for that verse somewhere. There are many places in the Bhagavad Gita where that verse is quoted in some purports also. Savai Mana Krishna Padaravinda. Vashamsi Vaikunta Guna Anubanan. Karau Ari Mandira Mandanan. So that is it. That is the beauty of our devotional service and the packaging theory. So we should take full advantage of it and try to perfect our lives, because it is yoga, but it is very, very simple yoga. It is not rigorous like other yogas. It is enjoyment and simply enjoyment in the Lord. And at the same time, purification takes place and perfection is attained without any strenuous effort. So this is the beauty of Krishna consciousness. There are some questions and commentaries on these points for now. We should become yoga yuktas. Yoga yukta. I say one should be situated in the knowledge that one is an eternal servant of the Lord. And such a person should do his duty without attachment. Such a person will perceive the body's action, walking, touching, and doing all those things as only the external senses, material nature doing its work. That is, stays aloof. Okay? With this realization, one can perform his duty without attachment and then surrender all the results to Krishna. Thus, work remains free from sinful action or reactions, just as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. Lotus leaves have a waxy surface, and water immediately glides off them. In the same way, reactions glide off Yes. One performing Niskama Kamaye. Therefore, the question can be raised. If someone is detached from work because he knows that he is spirit soul and not the body, what is his purpose in working? If somebody becomes detached, that he doesn't work for any reaction, then what then is the purpose for his working? Why should he continue to work? For one who has realized that it's not the body, it's a spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna, why should he work at all? Why should he continue to work at all? That is the next verse. The next verse is verse 11. Kayena manasa buddhya kevalai indriyai api yogina karma kurbanti sangam tyatmatma sudaye. The yogis abandoning attachment act with body, mind, and intelligence, and even with the senses, only for the purpose of purification. Why should they act? They act only for the purpose of purification. So, purport, please. Purport, please. Prabhujis, on your videos. For God's sake, on your videos. We are not impersonalists. Only my video is on. Every other video is off. What are you doing? Are you actually there?
Yes, we are actually here, Prabhu.
If you are there, then read.
I'm reading purport. Chapter 5, verse 11. Purport. When one acts in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of the senses of Krishna, any action, whether of the body, mind, intelligence, or even the senses, is purified of material contamination. There are no material reactions resulting from the activities of a Krishna conscious person. Therefore, purified activities, which are generally called sad akshara, can be easily performed by acting in Krishna consciousness. Sri Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 12187 describe this as follows. Iha yaksa hare dakse kamana manaksa gira nikilakshev api avaktaksu jivan muktaha sa ukchakte. A person acting in Krishna consciousness, or in other words, in the service of Krishna, with his body, mind, intelligence, and words, is a liberated person, even within the material world. Although he may be engaged in many so-called material activities, he has no false ego, for he does not believe that he is this material body, or that he possesses the body. He knows that he is not this body and that this body does not belong to him. He himself belongs to Krishna and the body too belongs to Krishna. When he applies everything produced of the body, mind, and intelligence, words, life, work, etc., whatever he may have within this possession to Krishna's service, he is at once dovetailed with Krishna. He is one with Krishna and is devoid of the false ego. That leads one to believe that he is the body, etc. This is the perfect stage of Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So that is it, verse 12. And today we are going to end in verse 12. You see, nobody is forcing anybody to come on board for these learnings because you are not doing it for me. It's for your own purification. So if you are nonchalant about it, doing as if you are busier than the person who is teaching, then you should not become a student. Because if that is allowed, nothing will work. So devotees should on their videos. If there's any, if once in a while, when somebody's video is off, it is understandable. But what is it? Eh? What is it we are doing that we are unable to show ourselves and we think we are devotees? So, in fact, let's read the verse 12 and we'll close for today because nobody is idle and nobody is receiving a reward separate from trying to make devotees connect properly and do service properly. Verse 12. Yukta kama phalam tyaktva santim apnotinai stikim. Yukta kama karena palisakto nivadyate. The steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the result of all activities to me. Whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled. Purport, please.
Purport. The difference between a person in Krishna consciousness and a person in bodily consciousness is that the former is attached to Krishna, whereas the latter is attached to the result of his activities. The person who is attached to Krishna and works for him only is certainly a liberated person, and he has no anxiety over the result of his work. In the Bhagavatam, the cause of anxiety over the result of an activity is explained as being one's functioning in the conception of duality. That is, without knowledge of the absolute truth. Krishna is the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. In Krishna consciousness, there is no duality. All that exists is a product of Krishna's energy, and Krishna is all good. Therefore, activities in Krishna consciousness are on the absolute plane. They are transcendental and have no material effects. One is therefore filled with peace in Krishna consciousness, but one who is entangled in profit calculation for sense gratification cannot have that peace. This is the secret of Krishna consciousness. Realization that there is no existence beside Krishna is the platform of peace and fearlessness. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, thank you very much. Thank you very much. First of all, we can notice that the verse begins with Yukta. A Yukta is a person who is engaged in devotional service. And later in the verse, we see the word Ayukta, one who is not in Krishna consciousness. So Yukta, one is Yukta and one is Ayukta. One is in Krishna consciousness, one is not in Krishna consciousness. So it's a comparison, it's a verse of comparing the Yukta and the Ayukta. And the translation is the steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the result of all activities to me. That is the Yukta. Whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, this is the Ayukta, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, he becomes entangled. So in this verse, the one acting in Krishna consciousness and the result is given. When one acts in Krishna consciousness, he becomes liberated. But when one is acting in self-consciousness and is greedy for the fruits of his labor, it becomes entangled. So one attains attachment and one attains detachment. One works in attachment, one works in detachment. The one working in detachment is the one working in Krishna consciousness. And the result is liberation from material bondage. And the one working with attachment is the one working in self-consciousness, one who is not in Krishna consciousness. And the result is bondage. Okay? So the results of those who are acting in Krishna consciousness and the results of those who are acting not in Krishna consciousness are given. And these results are liberation and bondage. The choice is actually ours. Where do we want to act? Do we want to act in Krishna consciousness and attain liberation? Do we want to be a yukta, work in Krishna consciousness and attain Atma Sudaya? Or we want to be an ayukta, work with greed and attachment to the results and get bandhana, kama bandhana. The choice is ours. So that is it. The choice is ours. Therefore, this particular verse is a summary. Is a summary of this second theme, activities of one in Krishna consciousness. And the next 4 verses answer a question Krishna already discussed in the 3rd and 4th chapter. Namely, who is the doer? The living entity, material nature, or Krishna as Paramatma? Who is the doer? And in the first of the 3 or the 4 verses, Krishna described the Jivatma's role, the role of the individual living entity in trying to establish the doer of activities. Krishna explained the role of the individual living entity. Then in the next one, he explained the role of material nature. Then he put them together. The next one, he explained the role of the super soul or the Iswara. So this next verse constitutes these 3 verses. The next theme constitutes verse 13, 14, and 15. And it's talking about the Jiva, Prakriti, and Iswara and their interrelationship. So a philosophical approach. So a lot is there in these other 3 verses. But we are not going to go into that now. But today's verse, the last verse, verse 12, is actually distinguishing between the yukta and the ayukta. Those who act in Krishna consciousness, the yoga yukta, who is Visuddhatma, Vijitatma, and Jitendriya, what does he get as a result? He gets liberation. He works in detachment, he gets liberation. Whereas the ayukta, who is working for the gratification of his senses, who is attached to the fruit of his labor, he becomes entangled. He becomes implicated in the reactions to simple activities. So this comparison between the yukta and the ayukta. And on this note, we bring this class to a closure. Are there some questions or commentaries on this point? Are there some questions and commentaries on this point?
No, Prabhu, everything is okay.
So once again, we point out that just like material nature is coming out from the mud of pradana, the living entity is being created from the mud of pradana. The lotus flower, lotus leaf is created from the mud of material existence, and a stem is connected to the root, and on top of the stem, the flower manifests. And this flower, even though its root is the mud, it is never entangled. It's not affected by the water, and it stands above the water. A devotee is expected to become like a lotus flower. While in this world, acting and engaging all the senses, it should not be entangled. And that science, that art and science of doing work so that one doesn't become entangled is to act as a yoga yukta. And to act as a yoga yukta, who is a pure soul, our intelligence must be purified, our mind must be purified, and our senses must be purified. Therefore, we say a yoga yukta is Visuddhatma, Vijitatma, and Jitendriya. If you are working on that platform, in the end, even though you are working, you will not be entangled. You are working in Krishna consciousness. You have mastered the art and science of Yukta Vairagya, and you are engaging all your senses in the service of the master of the senses. So even though actively engaged, you are not entangled by sinful reaction. Now that is beautiful. Working in that way is called Bhagavad Arpita Niskama Kama Yoga. And when one works in Bhagavad Arpita Niskama Kama Yoga, the result is liberation. But when one works in selfish, as a miser who wants to enjoy the fruits of his labor, it becomes entangled. The result is bondage. So on this note, we bring the class to a closure. And in our next class, we now talk about the Jiva, the Prakriti, and the Iswara, and their relationship. Yes, and the role they play in bringing about reactions to activities. Who is actually the doer? Is it the Jiva? Is it Prakriti? Or is it the Iswara? We are going to get a very philosophical approach to this in our next class. Thank you very much, and see you on Thursday. Hare Krishna. Confounder Sharasila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.